exciting that we're able to do this. So we are a go. We've got live streaming happening. So those of us that are in the Zoom call, we should any second see the button up in the top, which is exciting. Yes, we're good to go. Hold on, I gotta close the. Now I gotta figure out how to turn that one off. There it is. Phew. That was going to be very much a sensory overload. That would have been just a kind of trippy, I think. Okay, this is fun, folks. This is really fun. So for those of you that are joining us either here in the Zoom call, in our live stream, or in our Twitter space, thank you. We're doing a little experiment today. We are here as the Neurodivergent Infinity Network of Educators global kickoff for the AUsome Carers Network. And you might say, well, what is that exactly? So we do something at my school called the AUsome Human Club. And the AUsome Human Club with an AU is essentially partnering up little people, meaning children, with grown-ups who have shared identity aspects, being autistic neurology. And so we, Marion, I'm going to give you co-hosting privileges just while we're, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Okay. Just, sorry, bear with me 1 second. Okay.
I'm happy to keep an eye on the chat and let anybody come in.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we basically, you know, as members of the autistic community, and that's the Neurodivergent Infinity Network of Educators, are a group of autistic and otherwise neurodivergent, in many cases multiply neurodivergent, and we have found from our own experiences, but also from, you know, the endless research, anecdotal studies, you know, longitudinal studies in terms of who's had partners, buddies, people in their past that have understood them and had shared aspects of their identity, not just in the autistic and neurodivergent community, but in any, you know, when you share a representative aspect of your identity and feel like you belong in some way, that certainly helps as you're growing to feel that sense of belonging. And that's a huge piece for setting you up for learning, setting you up for success in so many ways, because then, you know, you're not feeling alone. You're not feeling like you're having to navigate a world where you don't feel like you belong. And so the AUsome Human Club that we do at my school, many of you who know me on Twitter as Neurodiversity in Principle, you know that I am the administrator at a very large online campus. We have about 1,000 6- and 7-year-olds, and quite a big number of our identified students who are considered exceptional students who have what we call an IEP, in some cases a 504 or a special education plan, or Marion, what do you call it in Scotland?
Individualized education plan.
You
we can have like a more advanced kind of document as well, which is,
yeah, just because there's all different names, right? But so we basically decided that we wanted to do a little bit of an experiment, and obviously with the parent and guardian's permission of students who are aware that they're autistic. And yes, at that age, we're really definitely encourage that. Certainly it's up to the family how they decide to do that, but we're trying to build a culture of accepting, including, embracing your authentic self, and really trying to align with human rights approach. So when we embrace our own authentic identities and grow up in that environment and being able to do that, obviously that's going to have really positive implications for mental health, success, relationships, and coping with everything. So it's been fantastic, and the feedback from the families has been fantastic. And so this is a little idea. I think it came out of when Baljit and I met, because we were having just an organic conversation, and that's how these things happen. We, were thinking about what would it look like to try and connect with the families. I'm very big in my career. It's always been very much about people before paper, and connecting with the community, and capitalizing on those relationships, and building those relationships, and repairing relationships if they've been damaged in the past, and just starting with those relationships. And so when we get families on board, and that's exactly what Baljit was doing just in your last workshop when you did the Punjabi and English workshop, connecting with the grown-ups to help them understand how best to support their children. And a big part of that was understanding what is it to be autistic, and what is an autistic reality feel like, and what's the why behind some things that maybe a non-autistic parent or grown-up might not understand. So connecting with little people, with autistic mentors, with autistic role models, it's much more I think valuable, very rich, when it's not just looking for sure, representation in books is great. Representation on TV is great. We know that we're far away from being equitably represented, certainly amongst our more diverse, culturally diverse, faith-based diverse, different gender identities and such. But even just to get autistic characters authentically represented in the media is such a hard journey. It's still so steeped in stereotypes, and that's obviously stigmatizing. So to have that actual connection with real life people, and yes, online is still real life, because I can tell you right now, I only met Sophia, and I know, Sophia, you're in the room with us now, so thank you. I'm so glad to see you. I only met Sophia in, I want to say it was like the late fall, and like now, like I can just message her or pick up the phone, and we don't, I mean, it would cost a fortune if we picked up the actual phone, but thankfully there are Wi-Fi chats now, and I know that that friendship is a true friendship, and these kinds of relationships we have to be building, so that our little people are seeing people and connecting with people and feeling embraced by the community. And it is amazing the feedback we're getting. So our next step, and this is what the kickoff is about, how do we extend this now to the Autism Carers, the Autism Carers Network? I remember us coming up with that together, Baljit, right? We were trying to think of what was going to, yeah. And so for those of you that have just joined us, I want to thank Rebby for jumping in and just we're just doing a little experiment here, folks. So if you're in the Twitter space, we are here, just an impromptu Twitter space is attached live as we speak, so you're aware. We have a live stream going on the Neurodivergent Infinity Network of Educators YouTube channel, as well as a Zoom meeting being recorded as part of this discussion. And this is part of the Intersectional Infinity Summit. So as all neurodivergent folks know, we kind of do things outside of the box sometimes. And, maybe it's a little impulsive, but I'm okay with that. I just think this is a fun way to round out our afternoon, and happy that you can all be here. Are you laughing too, Sophia? So who I see, so just, and I won't say names in the space that are on the Zoom because I haven't got their Twitter handles and I don't want to say their names, but if folks want me to, I certainly can. So we've got Rebby, just so people in the Zoom call know. We've got Rebby here, who's co-hosting. We've got Matty, who many of you who have been in our Zoom calls or live streams know Matty's been instrumental, as has Sophia, in supporting with the summit, which is fantastic. We also have Grace Durbin coming to us from Twitter in the space. We have Kai. Kai has also been a fantastic supporter. here as the CEO and co-founder of Autistics Unmasked. Great to have you back, Kai. I feel like we've all moved in together this week. Oh, Callum is here too. Callum's like our #1 fan at the summit. It's been fantastic. And look at that, Emily Chicken Tenders. All right. All of these fabulous people. And Gigafunk, I know your name. I know all these names. And I feel like I know Grace's name too. And I know Grace follows me, and that is fantastic. Let's see who else. We have RM. Oh, RM. I remember you, and I remember your picture. RM has this very cool picture on it's like two like aliens from like Area 54, kind of like ready to poke at you. So, and I love that. And so RM, Brad, great to have you back. I really enjoyed hearing what you had to say in the space the other day. And oh, Marion is double dipping right now. So I can see Marion waving at me, but she's also here as Marion Trekkie in the Twitter space. This is very fun. Let's see. And who do we have? You know what I love? LC Jonas 24 minute V, and please tell me if I'm saying it wrong. So we're at LC Jonas. I just love the fact that you have a big red circle right now, and that is just very exciting to me, because as we know, we are here in April 2nd. Known internationally because of United Nations as World Autism Day, but in the autistic community, I think it goes without saying for most of us that a vast majority of us would like to see it as Autistic Acceptance. You know, there's a move. We are seeing some improvements. We are seeing some double dipping of language. Organizations are trying to do both, but it would be nice if they would just sort of like rip off the Band-Aid and just kind of go full out, right? Like you don't need, it's great if you're going to go to Rainbow. That's a nice, you know, but if we're going to actually say that autistics want lighted up gold, because that is the AU sign, that's how, you know, the voices are speaking, then maybe the organizations who say they're representing us and supporting us, that would be great if they would take that next step. So we'll challenge that for next year, because obviously we're here, but it's already been an exhausting couple of days, not because of the summit, but because April is a tricky month for those of us who are autistic. And so I'm not trying to point anybody out. I'm just trying to be transparent for people that are in the Zoom. We also have, I'm embarrassed. I'm going to have to swear in front of my superintendent. No, I think he knows I do that. We have No Shit Sherlock here at Punishment Hurts. Oh, I'm fascinated by your handle. So in the Twitter space, the way it works if you haven't been in a Twitter space before is you may, a number of people can come up to the mic to speak, and you just have to press the little mic button in the bottom left. You can use the emoji symbol or whatever you go where the heart is, and you have options there if you want to clap for somebody or, you know, laugh out loud with tears. You can put your hand up if you'd like to speak. We've got Rebby co-hosting again. I'm really thankful for you stepping in to help with that. Matty, I don't know why it worked today. We were able to co-host seamlessly because I've had problems trying to co-host. So I think I should thank Real Green Horse from last night, who said, did you try resetting your rebooting it, like dumping it and putting it back in? So I think that did work. I'll have to give a shout out to them. So if you do want to speak, just raise your hand and it will invite you up. And I see Matty has his hand up. So this is the natural. I love this. This is so exciting. Okay, go for it, Matty. I yield the mic.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, early evening in the UK here, but wherever you are in the world. Hello and greetings. Thank you all for joining. Yeah, my name's Matty Lacey, existential autist, online. Pronouns are he, him. And yes, I'm proudly autistic, neurodivergent, and ADHD, although I don't like the deficit label around autism in any form. And yes, I'm a proud advocate and activist as well for all neurodivergent folks, no matter race, gender, sexuality, and class. And yeah, it's been quite a week at the Intersectional Infinity Summit, and just in terms of the ideas and creations and connections that have been built organically and co-learning together it's something that I know we will continue and strive upon. And yeah, just taking the moment in here of what's going on, but knowing there's so much work still to be done that we're going to be doing on human rights. I just want to thank you all really in any way that you've been here, contributed, helped support. Karen's been a force of nature. And last night we were talking with Green Horse about we've even been transcending time.
Yeah.
Different times and, you know, just the way the digital world's going and what we're learning together. It's really exciting me. And yeah, it's a beautiful sunny afternoon here in the UK. And I'm just out in the garden listening to the birds at the moment. And I think there's been so much, like I was saying, so much to reflect upon and write about. I shall be doing a poetry space spoken word session later on, sharing some spoken word pieces around being autistic and anything that anybody would like to share in terms of art. So I appreciate you all there. And yes, I'm going to be going down to, so I've got quite a busy evening coming up. I'm going to be going down to
I'll let you try and leave it.
Yeah. Being lit up gold. So I'm very excited for that.
Maddie, can
so yeah.
Maddie,
Yeah, I know.
sorry, can you we just somebody by accident unmuted. Can you just say which bridge it was again so we hear it again?
Oh yes. So it's the Millennium Bridge in Newcastle, upon Timm in England, is going to be lit up gold for Autism Acceptance, and a lot of credit to that. I was speaking to some great people at North East Autism Society and pushing on that, but we gave the last push with the council to make sure. So just I'm just excited to see that. And there's also going to be Penshaw Monument in Sunderland lit up gold for this. So yeah, it's all happening today, this evening. So I'm going to be checking on that. But yeah, the future truly is autistic and neurodivergent. You know, people learning about. Well, the last note on that learning about, you know, what in the actual autistic community we like for these symbols, you know, the usage of the infinity symbol and, you know, the rainbow colours and the gold infinity is really important to us. So yeah, very excited for that. I hope you're all having a great day and I look forward to building more bridges and amazing connections in the future.
Congratulations.
Matty, I think when I go into Aberdeen City Centre this evening to take a picture of Marshall College all lit up gold, I'm going to have to tweet it out and tag you in. And then, you know, you feel free to tag me in whenever you've been to see the Millennium Bridge. That would be so cool.
And you know what we can do? We'll put those pictures. Oh, I was going to say.
Yeah, the pictures, I'm going to get some pictures, recordings, all tags, and using the intersectional infinity hashtag if you all could with anything, and just connect it to autism acceptance as well, so we get as much reach as possible. Any all retweets, tags are appreciated, you know. It's about connecting people, but also breaking down hierarchies, you know what I mean, and cutting down a lot of the monopoly on autism. So, yeah, it's appreciated.
Absolutely. And in Aberdeen, where is it again that you've got lit up, Marion? Because I know you've been working on that.
I'd like to see it as well.
It's my lovely colleague Felicity as the one who organised it. It's the Marshall College, which is a beautiful old building. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Space and community that Rebby hosts and listens and learns and shares such wisdom and knowledge on mental health and many things. So thank you very much, Rebby.
Super. That's so thankful for that. Marion, I'm sorry.
I just think this whole week has been incredible.
I just want to make sure Marion could be heard again because maybe I'll turn my sound up. That's what I'll do.
I noticed there's a slight lag on the stream for me on the YouTube channel. I'm going to try it again and see if I can get it synced up.
Oh, I don't think you can. I think there's an automatic delay.
Yeah, it's good because we're so international with these things.
Yeah,
it's like different times and sometimes we'll have a few lags out in the spaces and stuff. But yeah, thanks to all there on the Zoom.
Are you saying
right now I will be popping up to see how the Zoom's going and the link.
Are you saying we should wave to you right now? Are you all watching? You folks all watching us? We're just having too much fun here. It's just silly.
I go through the screen at the moment. So
I know.
See the screen.
Well, this is our experiment, right?
It's brilliant. It's
This is
brilliant.
our experiment. This is our version of the pandemic cocktail party. That's what this becomes when we do things like this. So we're just having fun. So and yes, I definitely echo the thanks again to Remy for that. So just to kind of reset the room, we're here. I know it doesn't feel like we got much accomplished yet because we're just sort of orienting ourselves, but we're here in three ways. We're here on live stream, in a planned Zoom call as part of the Intersectional Infinity Summit, and just for fun, because I thought about doing this yesterday when I was starting to get a little bit punchy from sleep deprivation, I think, and thought, wouldn't it be fun? And then opening up a Twitter space to just bring more people into the room has been kind of a neat experiment we're doing. So who knows, this may be just another way that we can challenge Twitter spaces to open up their laptop version, right? Because that's not as accessible as we'd like it, and nor is the iPad version. So, oh, and Levon's here, that's cool. So is there anybody in the Zoom room that would like to say hello? Because I know Marion is in both. And Baljit, you're in both. So I've said Sikhs for Autism is here. If there's, and Sophia, I don't think you mind. I don't want to speak for you, but I know you well enough to know I don't think you mind me saying that you're here. But is there anybody else that wants to say hello or me read your name or first name or anything like that? Just I want to give you that option if you'd like. And if I don't see a thumbs up, then I will just keep going. They're just peaceful. They're just peaceful, and that's okay too. So it looks like they're going to decline and just witness this right now, which is kind of neat, our little experiment. Oh, welcome MetaMax, and welcome into the space. I saw one more person come in. Oh, maybe it was MetaMax. Maybe somebody got
it's the person with the swear word. I'm gonna have to change my name if I get social. I'm sorry.
Oh, don't. No, it's okay. It's okay. I was just teasing. Don't worry about that. We're all grown-ups. And hey, Johnny Profane did a show for us last night. So what can I say? But would you like to share?
I'll probably show up at a few of these things to listen. I'm trying not to talk. I talk too much. I'm not sure. I'm looking for a community. I think this is my community. I did an online test once that said I was the least divergent person on earth. I'm 60 years old and my life says otherwise. So I'm just looking. I'm going to listen. Thank you for having me.
Wow. And you know, I think that's the neat thing about this community is that it is very you know, we embrace everyone. We try to, I think. I can't say that that's true all the time. Certainly, we've got a lot of work to do, but I think that we're trying. And we challenge each other to do that as well. But
one of the things that,
yeah, go ahead, Marion.
One of the things that we try and do, our organisation, is accept that everybody's on their own journey to autistic acceptance, and everybody's on their own journey to learning about where they're at. And I think about where I was at 17, 18 years ago when I was first learning about autism and what it was meaning to be autistic. And it is so vastly different to where I am now. And I think, sort of, Karen, you've been talking about autistic acceptance as opposed to autism awareness and things. We're running our 4th annual acceptance campaign on our social media at the moment. And this year we have rebranded it to being autistic acceptance rather than autism acceptance. And I think it's because we were having a think, what exactly is autism? You know, it's not something that we can pick up. It's not something we can take away. We're not wanting people to accept autism. We want them to accept autistic people. So let's call it what it is. Let's see, you know, let's put the right brand on it. It is about autistic acceptance, because there's no such thing as just autism by itself. It's autistic people. You know, you have autistic brains in autistic people. So that's where that's coming from. But that's come from a lot of learning. That's come from a lot of time within the autistic community. That's a lot of time on our own journeys to autistic acceptance. And it's years in the making, I think. So I think that it's really important that we just take everybody where they're at and sort of say, that's an interesting position. How did you get there? Where's your information come from? And then let's see if we can gently move forward, and let everybody identify as they will. Because I think one of the big problems that we sometimes come up against is that some people do want to be the tone police, which is understandable, because sometimes when we use the wrong language, it can be hurtful. But when it's other neurodivergent people, I think it's fair to let them identify as they will.
Yeah, for sure.
That's my cousin's on it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I see RM's hand is up, so go ahead, RM.
I wanted to share some reflections on the sessions I attended last night, yesterday's sessions. I had recently, been, first of all, I am someone who works, I'm steeped in neck deep in the pathology paradigm, but it's something which I have been trying hard to fight, and it's really hard, because all the people I work with, I don't want to make any specific remarks about the kind of people I work with, but none of them are aware of the neurodiversity paradigm or the details. Most of them haven't even heard of it, even though we work every day with autistic people. So yesterday's sessions, first of all, they are such a relief to be somewhere where, it's so validating to see that people are doing things the way they should be done. And I wanted to share how well the sessions had been conducted, at least as far as I understood. Every effort is being made to make it, because I was reading this book, Neuroqueer Heresies by Nick Walker, and there's a chapter in which he has given the guiding principles for a course on autism. So he first of all says that we should discard the concept of a balance. That is the balance between the pathology paradigm and the neurodiversity paradigm. So I think that way our sessions had been quite successful, the ones I attended yesterday. The instructor must be autistic, and the instructor must be a participant in autistic culture, community, and resistance. That is, they should not be someone who is autistic and a token representative, or but most of all, the one point that he says, the instructor must model the accommodation of neurodivergence. Yesterday when Karen said that, I'm sorry, I might stutter because I have been masking, and then to share their own experience, as well as that is modeling the accommodation of neurodivergence, right? It begins with home, with yourself. And of course, there were many such accommodations modeled yesterday. Really, really warmed my heart. And also the discussions and the direction we are taking, the progress people are making, the diversity in terms of color and the continents. Hearing Tanya from South Africa, and the Africans for Autism, and Sikhs for Autism. All these people. I wish we had more representation from Asia, though, because ABA, I have been talking to the people, in one of the sessions, because Africa is really sort of making a stand against ABA, but I don't hear much of that from Asia. Yeah. And I hope the Sikhs for Autism would be raising their voice, and somebody would take on this responsibility to speak against ABA in Asia, because I know it's not been long since I've been working, when I was working in India, and there's nobody really is seeing it at the moment in a big way. So thank you everyone for yesterday's sessions. I look forward to many such more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're glad that you're here. And thank you absolutely for that perspective. I think that's why we have to do things globally. And I know we say like locally and then globally, right? We do what we can in the small, sphere of influence or area where we can have some power to change things. But what's interesting is when we work together the way we are doing now, we can really shift things, because we're taking the best ideas and we're reproducing them in multiple places, but we don't have to reinvent the wheel in our own ways. Yes, we want to be responsive to our own communities, our own geographies, and all of that. But the bottom line is, this is about human rights. And and if we go back to what our dialogue, we'll go tangential, and that's okay, because that's how we grow things, right? But I think if we start with a place of human rights, and we do what Karen Miyuki's been talking about, looking at the CRPD, getting to understand more and advocate more in ways that will exact change, with the powers that be, as opposed to, the lights are important, right? And the language is important, and the self-acceptance and all of that is important. But we also have to navigate systems because there are rules, there are processes and policies, and some of those are antiquated, there's no doubt. But the thing is, we can navigate them together. And if we are setting precedents, like the lighting up the different, Millennium Bridge, and I think somebody was going to try for the Kelpies, it seems to me, Sophia. I didn't even know who the Kelpies were until you explained it. And then it occurred to me afterwards, kelp, the sea, it made sense. I got it then after that. But we have to be thinking about our local communities, about our families and change there, while at the same time thinking how we can coordinate our efforts, right? It's not an us against them at all. It's how do we bring people into the dialogue in active ways, in ways where they are embracing and listening and learning to be allies. And I have 2 allies here in the space in our Zoom call. I know there's people that come into our calls who are carers, parents, guardians of kids who are, they're coming over to this side, and I'm being a little flip with it, but really there is such a difference when we think of those who identify as an autism mom, dad, or grown up, compared to those who are parents or grown-ups of autistics. That paradigm shift is fundamentally tied to human rights. And if we can help shift that in our communities, and that spreads the word, right? We need to get our efforts invested in the same direction, really. And I'm just looking to see, I think it's Callum. Sorry, I've got my glasses on, but clearly my eyes are tired. So Callum, I yield the mic, go ahead.
Hello everyone. Always fantastic to be here. I just wanted some clarification on the title of this event, because it mentions the AUsome carers, and I've got some thoughts, because just on that alone, I might be off the mark here with this, but I think as much as we need to realign the paradigms from the pathology paradigm to the neurodiversity paradigm, I also think that people need to see autistic carers rather than carers for autistic people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that we don't see enough of, speaking from people in my network, where there are autistic carers, rather than people having a certain idea of where certain levels of autistic people, and I use that word very, very, very loosely, levels, but people based on the pathology paradigm,
mm-hmm. people
will be separated even from the autistic community. I've mentioned it elsewhere before, but if you think of someone like myself, for example, people would put me under the label of the functioning label as higher functioning,
mm-hmm.
because I speak, because I can function in ways that matter to society. Okay, whatever. Because you put me in stressful situations, and I won't be the same person. That's just the spectrum of experience. So, but I'm just thinking, it's just, and it can happen in day-to-day interactions at, let's say, a coffee shop. Let's say someone walks in that's non-speaking, and they're really stressed by the sensory environment, and they start getting really stressed, like knocking things over maybe. I think it's interesting in those moments to see how people react, and that's the ground floor of the work that we need to do, I believe, in terms of shifting the lens and unifying people rather than separating, which, you know, I'm sure there'll be some people in that fake coffee shop scenario, but it will have happened somewhere where someone will get disturbed by it. Oh, can you go somewhere else? Instead of addressing them as what's bothering them, or what can we do to ensure they have a nice coffee. You know, it's the same with noisy children. Oh, can you teach them to shut up? Or, you know, people are really rude when children are involved in situations where they're distressed or just being, if you're a baby, I think you get. I'll be kind to babies because they're babies, but my point is being driven home here. If like I say, if this is about awesome carers, but yeah, I don't know.
I think, though, in the same way that we can redefine what does acceptance look like, because somebody in a room yesterday said, you know, well, it's more than acceptance. Absolutely. I just define acceptance as full acceptance, providing what's needed, you know, embracing those neuro differences, and also implementing the systemic change. That to me is actually acceptance. But further to your point, Callum, you know, in that coffee shop example, I think of the people who hold power in societies are some of those big organizations, right? Whether it be medical field or those organizations that say that they are representing the needs of the autistic community. But we know, I'm not saying anything we don't all know. And I know I have personally tried to reach out to see how many of their executives are paid autistics. And oftentimes you don't even get a response back. You know, most of the times any consulting that is done with a very small group of people who I think somebody else used the word are like a tokenistic representation, and might be those who are, dare I say, you know, more almost being used as pawns, because they've grown up in a system where the autism parent mentality has been you know, kind of on them their whole life, and so they don't know any different. And once some of these folks are knowing different and they're realizing, oh my gosh, like my rights are actually different than what I've been, you know, thinking they were, then things change. But in that coffee shop idea, if those organizations were to take their role seriously and actually do what they say they're doing by actually listening to, consulting with, paying and employing autistic employees, you know, then that would make a world of difference. Because right now, if any one of us, and we know because we've all done it, if any one of us reaches out in a nice, kind way to some of these organizations, even some of the organizations that were, you know, they're getting better, but they're not there yet, they will respond ever so politely. Thank you for the feedback. We always want to listen. I got one yesterday. We always want to strive. We want to strive to listen to the voices of the, you know, community with autism or something like that. And I thought, really, you just missed the boat right there, because the default is the medical model language. The default is, you know, putting out campaigns with old videos, and I mentioned this in a previous space, with old videos that are literally showing other children teaching about a child who is autistic, whose voice does not come out in the video, and they're literally perpetuating, you know, the opposite of nothing about us without us. So if those organizations would take a stand and say, well, we're going to actually put our money where our mouth is, but they won't. And that's the biggest problem that we have right now, because, you know, there's funding involved. There's, you know, I get it. They're tied to a model, and I know Matty's got his hand up. I know where you want to go with this. So I'll yield the mic back to you, because go for it. Yeah, now you've got the laughing tears. Go ahead, Matty.
Well, thanks very much, Karen. I'd never want to cut anybody off in an amazing stream of consciousness, you know, autistically. I think this is just another point for those listening to, you know, autistic conversations, that for many years, you know, being told to just shut up, or you're going too much into a point. This is how we connect, form ideas, and build trust. That's a form. I'll just say to my good friend Callum, your speaker's on, buddy, if you wouldn't mind. In a second, if you can hear me. Yeah, I can hear the feedback, you know, with me. I've just seen a tweet there, you know, about highly empathetic, those with high empathy, and many autists do have very high degrees of empathy, rather than no empathy, as some leading supposed experts have said and made connections with. We can feel these words, we build on narratives, we look for patterns. This narrative of the medical-based model, there's so many points being formed with that in terms of, you know, who we are as beings, as human beings from an early age, being told this is too much, it's not connected, it all connects for us. And I believe, truly, uncomfortable truths to those who are neurotypical, they know the connections are there as well, but it is too easy to use the medical-based jargon and narrative, or it's your deficiency, you know, you're just being that autistic, you're going too over the top there. This is not truth, and that truth has much power. And I think how that is used to gaslight autistic people still within many professions. We can see this, and we know it's happening. And I think it's also it's not always intentional, but because the medical-based deficit model and forced ways of conversion of autistic children and adults, I think people don't even realise it's going on with gaslighting, because it's that entrenched in the whole narratives that are built. And I'd just like to give a shout out to my good friend who, if anyone doesn't know, in terms of a UK and international perspective, is someone who does so much amazing work in his local community in Lincolnshire, and the passion there. I really encourage everybody to check out Spalding today as well, because Callum is also a spoken word performance artist and poet. I'm also a spoken word artist and poet, and understanding about narratives and doing this, connecting it to words and language, and giving a shout out to Dr. Nick Walker. Dr. Nick Walker being identified as she, with Neuroqueer Heresies. That book and that understanding of completely shifting normality itself, and understanding philosophically that normality is a myth, used within these power dynamics to deny autonomy, to reduce human rights, is really information and knowledge that can make everyone understand what has went on, and then build to wisdom. You know, philosophically, that's the link between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge isn't just learning from the textbook and repeating the slogan. It's acting it upon the world. You know, philosophers interpreting the world, but we've got to change it. The good old quote of anybody who knows of that character. But I think just tying it up, linking it back to care as itself. You know, what is it to be a carer? And that was a vital point that Callum made about this narrative, that it's those who care for autistics, yet the care and responsibilities we have, because of the high functioning labels, then deny support. then it is used to say, well, you're not really that autistic, you're not really suffering that much. And that happens to many neurodivergent people. And I'd like to give a shout out, to the amount of women as well, and those non-binary and trans folks who get denied diagnosis. And, well, women and men and non-binary with care and responsibilities, how this is used against parents of autistics and autistic parents as a kind of attack. It's a beautiful and amazing thing that autistic partners and neurodivergent and disabled people have children and relationships and grow them up proudly in their neurodivergent selves. And it's something I encourage to see that, and there's many very healthy consensual relationships being built, that this can work. It's not something to be afraid of with children. Disability isn't a shameful word. There's so many points, about the language and how key that is. We say to people, we are not a person with autism. Autistic people, neurodivergent people, that is not just me saying that personally. Of course, everyone has the right to autonomy of the language. This isn't to force it upon. This is years of academic research, of local research on what the autistic community prefers. Yet when these bodies are ignoring that blatantly, when you keep saying this, there really is, excusing this behaviour, it is completely out of order, and it is abusive. It is a form of violence to silence those voices and listening to the majority in that sense. So, being comfortable and confident to educate together on this language, not to attack people. It's not what's happening. It's the fact that, as I alluded to and mentioned, the power of words and sounds and noises, it has a physical and psychological impact on us daily. And we see those who are learning together, and we appreciate you really immensely, with all the barriers that are faced. So I just, to end on this, we're all in a state of flux. We can be carers, be cared for. We're not this linear, stagnant state of being. That's existence. It's constantly in flux. So I appreciate you all here today, and I just really implore you all to keep listening to autistic voices, and if they are speaking or non-speaking, to really try to learn from AUC users as well, and those who use different forms of technology. I'd like to give a shout out to those listening in as well who prefer text-based communication. You're just as valid and worthy of that respect. Functioning labels, well, shouldn't be used. They will, should and will be abolished. But yeah, I implore everybody to keep listening to autistic people and neurodivergent people if they have had the privilege and access to official diagnosis and to those self-diagnosed. You have the value and you're worthy of being your own true, authentic self. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Matty. And it's interesting, and I'm always afraid when I say I won't say much about this and then I go on about it. But that's okay. I'm kind of tired of apologizing for that, so I'm not gonna bow to the internalized ableism. When I think about that journey that parents and caregivers often go through, especially with me being, I'm entrusted with all of these wonderful little people and their families in these very powerful relationships. And in online education, we're tasked with, really strategically finding ways to build community, right? Because we're not right now in a building. Many schools are, but we are an online campus. And so in that context and strategically, ensuring that you are connecting with families in different ways and connecting with kids in different ways. Oftentimes we're seeing that, and I think this is, again, true quite internationally, that the diagnostic process happens with a little person, and not that long afterwards, at least one of the grown-ups in the household is also wondering, questioning, and it happens in all of our families, because it is a genetic predisposition. We know that, right? You don't just fall out of the sky. Like, I mean, you're born from somewhere, and unless it's an adopted situation, you know, it's like when you're an ADHDer, right? There's a genetic predisposition. So I don't know. I would have to check what Chris Bonello's studies show. I don't even know if he had that question on his survey about, you know, do your family members also exhibits, you know, any of these criteria. I hate that word. But I think we all know those family members, whether they're uncles, aunts, you know, whoever, cousins, that you connect with, resonate with more, because there's that shared autistic identity, whether diagnosed or not, whether they know it or not. And the same thing is happening with families. And I'm curious as to, in the context of this AUsome carers network idea that we have, how can we leverage the parents and carers like myself, or like, and I can't even see properly now because Charlie was here, but I don't know if Charlie's not there. But how can we leverage the parents who are the caregivers who are autistic of autistics to help move that dialogue forward? Because that's another gap between autistic parents and carers and parents who don't know their, you know, neurotype, but their default is neurotypical, so they believe they're neurotypical. How do we leverage the expertise, skill, lived experience of autistic parents? And Callum, your hand was up, and it was probably about something separate, but I don't want to distract you from your idea. So if you want to go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So I think with what Matty said about all of this oppression being so pervasive, it's about finding those teachable moments. And I bring it back just quickly to my coffee shop scenario. And I think that's the way that we can keep chipping away at because the thing with all of this is it's not as if all of what we're saying hasn't been said before. And I mean that respectfully. I mean it more that it's not like the autistic-led organisations and the authentic autistic and otherwise neurodivergent voices aren't there. It's just we clearly are not listened to and, more importantly, acted upon. Because we can be listened to and be given a tick box exercise, but I think there's real life examples of potential change. There's teachable moments. You know, there's moments to connect, and it takes courage because not everybody. I'm autistic, so if I was to see the scenario in the coffee shop that I described happening, I probably, because I am, as Matty alludes to, I am quite busy in my local area and trying to raise everybody up within my local area. I probably would say something or find a way to say something, because that is then that's a communication bridge, and that's an opportunity to get someone to reflect and connect in a different way, and whether it's someone is really annoyed with the distress, which I don't understand why you'd be annoyed at someone's distress, like they say distress. Surely compassion, you know, and connection should be, you know, should go to the forefront of your mind. When someone's in distress, it's be like, oh god, how privileged is that? How entitled is that? So I think it's about that, and again, just speaking on a local level to your current question about how can we leverage the voices of autistic carers and parents and bring everybody up. And I think for me personally, it's a lot of it is transport and consistent care, because first experiences I'm thinking about of autistic carers carers that I know, you know, they are caring for someone that they love, and yet they're quite young themselves, and what they really need is someone to be there to be almost a middle person, and I can speak to this on a personal level as well, because I have a neurodivergent household at the minute with myself and my friend, and their needs have required care in the past, epilepsy and PTSD. We're both autistic. I'm not going to say that because it's not my story to tell, per se, but in the context of being a carer, it's about, every time I say it, I like it more, but communication bridges are what it's all about for me. It's about, okay, how can we ensure that we get the best out of both of our lives, and it's okay if you don't have all the answers, because I don't fit the PTSD profile. You know, I fit the autistic profile, so there's certain bits, but even within that, because the way society is, you get diagnosed, and again, in my local area, I'm sure people can relate, not just me, but I'm only speaking from local experience, but you get diagnosed, and that kind of thing. And so, even if we can relate on an autistic level, we're still not given the grassroots tools to really know. We're just kind of handed paperwork. There you are. And kind of, there's so much more that needs to be unlearned and discovered and expressed as an authentic autistic person beyond here are his and paper. So my friend's autistic experience will be different to mine, and it's okay not to know all the answers, but the answer or working towards an answer will come if you have that communication bridge of, okay, how can we make this work for us? Okay, right, I pace a lot, and basically I pace. So then, how can we address that? I go outside, or whatever it might be. It's working with the individual in a caring capacity, and it's also speaking to the middle person idea that it's because I'm a very sensitive person, and they are seeking more independence. But how can this happen with? Because it used to be that because of their neurodivergency, the epilepsy, I had to be the carer. So that then impacts my independence, and it's not anyone's fault. It's no one's fault that the seizure happens. Like, you can't. I'm not saying, this is not like a switch that you can't switch off, right? But the importance of middle people means that I can express this in a way that can be addressed that doesn't impact on them regarding the PTSD, because there's a lot of blame there. So if we're just having the conversation, as and we are, I'm in a quite isolated area, and so having that direct conversation that I really need to go out and do this peer support group work. If I could do that because I'm caring, that's not their issue. That's not an issue, but it's also you have to find that balance. And so I think the middle, it's okay to have a little bit of help, the communication bridge, so we can all rise up. And I think just my final point is is in regards to the idea of care, really, because care, we all have moments of support, more likely than we're all going to need support at some point of our lives. And I think we should embrace the pity. It shouldn't be that, oh, you clearly have some issues. You know, you've got issues, people say that, which is, I don't think that's a helpful way of when people say it like that. But it's okay to need a bit of help. But the problem is that we then see that as, oh, you're going to have this kind of life, that your life gets set out for you based on your care needs, rather than, okay, how can we give power to you? How can you have meaning in your life? Like, what matters to you, rather than, oh, well, that's, and this is it. This is how it ties into parents, because parents get this message of, well, they're severely autistic, so then they're going to go in the home and they may not speak, and you get all this apologising, and it just serves to divide us. And I think the summit is doing an amazing job of as I mentioned before, leaving a legacy of conversations. I'm not sure if we're thinking some sort of network in a physical space, but this kind of platform is really beneficial, I think, in bridging that divide, and as you mentioned, leveraging the voices of everybody to make most of life.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So many layers to what you just said. I'm trying to think. First, let me just having issues accepting somebody as a speaker. Oh, that's weird. It looks okay. Let me try. It's scrolling. Oh, you're in. Good. Okay, perfect. So thank you for that. I wonder, Ravi, this earlier today, just before I came in to set up the session that I was in with Baljit, you sent me a message and I happened to see it, and it was one of those kind of bizarre moments where it seemed kind of urgent, and like, are you able to connect that to our conversation? Because it was interesting how that yeah, go for it. Do you want to just like connect it, or like because I wasn't there for the context of why you kind of messaged me to say, like, okay, we need an autistic perspective in here. Are you okay to speak?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. Just to say, everyone.
Welcome. That's good. We'll just if you could just put your hand up if you want to speak. We'll just give Ravi a turn first. Thanks so much.
Sorry.
No problem. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason why I thought it was important to elevate the summit and the work that's been done around the summit was there were some medical health professionals on this space, and they were using language that was sort of, it just seemed quite, it was things like, people who have autism, and just the language was just quite, it was quite negative, and I didn't think it was very accepting. And a lot of the things that have been sort of discussed this week is language and the importance of language. And they were sort of, even after you spoke, they were sort of still using that language. And so I think it was just really important to be sort of checked about that. I don't know if that makes sense. I apologize if I'm not wording that very well.
Yeah, no, it was just interesting because to me, just a reminder, those that aren't speaking, if you can just mute your mic because it's very distracting. Thanks so much. I think you were trying to act in the role of an ally, just like we want our parents and carers to be doing, especially if they're not autistic or neurodivergent themselves. And in that space, the dialogue was, I think, being dominated by very medical model pathologizing, and that's never the it's never the intent. It didn't, when I went in, it didn't sound like the intent. They were talking about, we really need to embrace and celebrate, all of these words. I hate that word celebrate, even though I know that in some cases it's okay, but because I feel like celebrate is so tied to that tokenistic approach. And we've tried to get away from that in equity work. We've tried to get away from that, in many ways, especially when it comes to those who are identifying as disabled or neurodivergent, or groups that are kind of seen as broken. Right? It's a very different kind of marginalization, not minimizing anybody else's lived experiences, because everybody's marginalized in different ways, and all are certainly valid and horrible. But when the world sees you as broken, it's extremely hard to I'm getting messages of people that are so angry about that. I won't repeat that one though. It's really exhausting, because even the people who think they're doing the right thing, clearly in that example, I tried to come in, share, and I wasn't aggressive or anything like that. It was just like, I had a couple of minutes. So as I was getting ready to go into the space, I just kind of said, well, here's kind of the reasoning behind this and the reason behind that. And then I know that language patterns can take a while for people to adopt, but those defaults are really ingrained, right? And so that's why we have to not go away. But it makes it so exhausting, because if we're the only ones that are doing the work, and that's how it feels oftentimes, right? It's very few and far between that there are people really advocating. And I think what's hard is many of us are our specialization ties to things like social justice, ties to things like equity, ties to things like standing up for other people. And even like Jorn Betten's work that he's actually going to be on in, I think it's 4 o'clock. Matty, I don't know, wait, Maxine was here, right? Or is Maxine gone? That's okay. Matty, if you can look and just double check, I believe it's 4 o'clock that Jorn is coming. But when, Jorn is anthropologist and just a brilliant writer and founder of the Autistic Collaboration Trust, and his work ties into this very much. So certainly that's a great next step for people to really dig deeper. But I don't know what the answers are. I mean, I think this is a dialogue that we need to continue, but it's interesting, Ruby, because I left, and what you're saying is that still continued, and how much of that is intent, how much of it is it didn't impact them directly, right? That's that whole idea of privilege. So they just kind of kept going with it. And what I said, and I know your hand is up, I just want to finish this thought, because it was very interesting. And while I was navigating that space, Rebby was trying to get me to go into that space. I was kind of like, okay, I don't have much time, but I'll try to come into that space. And when I requested to speak, it was ignored, and then it was ignored, and it was ignored. And I as a host, I get it. You don't know who's coming in, but it took an ally. It took Rebby, I guess, saying, "Can you let so and so in?" or something, because it took a while for him to let me in, and really that's, there was no reason for him to not let me in. So that was interesting. Go ahead, Rebby.
Yeah, I do apologise, because I was listening to it, and I do think that the host is a good person. I am not sure of their like experience in terms of neurodivergence, so I can't comment on that. But they do a lot for Twitter communities, and I've interacted with them in spaces before, which is probably why they accepted me as speaker. I know that many people can be reluctant when they're hosting recorded spaces and to have people up as speakers that they're not familiar with. So I respect hosts who have the choice to do that, but it is a little unnerving when, you know, you have a topic about a specific subject, and I believe you need to have people who have lived experience of that subject, because I think that's how we learn. That's how we learn, and that's how we accept. I'm not particularly great with words sometimes. I learn through conversations, but most importantly, I learn from listening. And I think everybody in that space listening to what you had to say, which, can I just say, for everyone in the room who's here, and I'm sure it'll happen later as well, massive respect and thanks to Karen. Karen, you've been doing such an incredible job of hosting this summit, you know, multitasking, putting all of these meetings, conversations together. You have been working so hard. And I was listening earlier to some of the language and the dialogue, and I thought, this isn't right. I'm not feeling comfortable about listening to this. And I wanted to really hand the mic over to someone who actually was able to educate. So I do apologize, I did put you on the spot. You certainly didn't have to jump in by any means, but let me tell you this, so many people will have taken something from everything that you said, including the hosts themselves. I don't think they had bad intentions at all, but it is a very interesting conversation. I did want to share, actually, my mother, who was diagnosed autistic a decade ago. The whole reason as to how that came about was because she was let go from a job because she was considered strange or not working well with the other members of staff. Just some really weird, toxic language regarding who she was as a person, and she was let go, and it crushed her. And, you know, being in sort of like in the UK, when you're sort of trying to get answers, whether it's to do with mental health or neurodivergence, it can be incredibly challenging. And it was after 2 meetings with a psychiatrist that she was diagnosed with autism. And I think a lot about how she was treated by this workplace and how so many people are treated in the workplace. Language around, oh, you shouldn't be a fit enough parent because you're autistic. You probably wouldn't be suitable for this role because you're autistic. And it makes me very, very angry and sick, to be honest. And I'm learning more about myself and whether or not I'm neurodivergent. And you know what? I think this is why these conversations probably need to keep happening, but I don't have all the answers. I can just try and be here to lift up voices and make sure that people are heard. So thank you, Karen, for doing what you do.
Thank you. You know, but it is a team, and yes, absolutely. You know, I'm working hard. There's no doubt. We're all working hard, but people come together. Like, it's kind of that whole, if you build it, they will come, right? and people have been stepping in new ways while also learning. So I think that's what's been really great. But every day, I think we're getting strength. I know I get strength from each new conversation where somebody is feeling like they've found community, or they've, you know, it's like Jordan's film, right? This is not about me. It's not about any individual one of us. And that's what Jorn's work digs into, that whole idea that the autistic community has this unique way of kind of seeing patterns, seeing big pictures, seeing the direction that we need to go with society to fix things and change things, and you know, and that may be ecological and it may be social. So many you know, ways that we're problem solvers and innovators and ahead of our time often, but we're also, even though the diagnostic criteria might say, you know, lacking social cues and things like that, when we are advocating for something and we know it's the right thing to advocate for, we're also the people that are not going to just bow down to the pressure to conform and comply and because we know that there are lives at risk, and there are lives at risk in this fight. And it is a fight. It's a struggle, right? It's a former partner of mine would say, like, she'd say, I'm not going to die on that hill for this, that, or the other. And I texted her this morning and I said, this is my hill. This is my hill. We if we climb it together, it's going to be a lot easier to carry all the baggage that we have. That's for sure. But yeah, thank you for those kind words, Rebby. And I don't feel that I didn't mind at all you calling me in. I felt badly that I couldn't stay and be in the space in a little more calm way, because I was kind of walking around the house trying to get dressed and get ready for the space, or I would have scared Baljit when I came into the meeting. That just wouldn't have been good. But I'm happy to do that. I know Matty does the same thing, right? Like, we need those authentic voices in there. And certainly none of us say that we stand for the autistic community. But those of us who are just tired of hiding, are just deciding that at this point we have to risk certain things to stand up for what's right, because there's too many people that are leaving our professions, that are out of work, that are being traumatized. And we live it, so we're living it while we're also fighting it, and I think that that's what's exhausting, but we get strength from each other. And go ahead, Matty.
Oh, thanks very much, Karen and Rebby. So many amazing points. Yeah, I'm going to be leaving soon, as I'll be preparing to go into the tune and find out about the exact timings. I've been making some phone calls, and again, those neurotypicals, bless them, they can, the processing things at their own time. But we must make time to give care and compassion for them with their normal brains. Yes. So no, back to the point.
I'm laughing.
Yeah. Well, we must, provide awareness for the neurotypical condition, and not understanding the patterns of behaviour and human emotion. Raise awareness for that for sure today and going forward. Yes, definitely. People with neurotypicalism, we will, we'll strive to show them that, they have very special ways of being. And yes, we care for them with all the challenges they face. For sure, just think of those people at this time. If only we had some neurotypical people who could speak on this experience. If only, they organised international conferences. If only, they lived the actual practice of connecting lived experience with philosophy and health and medicine, and it's fascinating. But no, on a note with that about the space earlier on, I shall be listening back. But again, it seems to be a very common experience and widespread that either a silencing or an unknowing kind of moment of, look, we're trying to share what's actually going on and living this authentic autistic life, and it's not wishing bad on these people, it's just things we continue to see and the patterns of behaviour. And yeah, I'm so glad Karen went to that, and as we do speak on this and educate together as co-learners, but also breaking down the notion of absolute knowledge and being the all-knowing expert, knowing from a place of knowledge and wisdom, knowing that you know nothing completely is wisdom, foundation of philosophy, but psychologically knowing as well the threat that is posed by those who are doing this, and those who have millions to invest in campaigns and resources, that it's not being done. But I just think continuing to know that this is living the reality of what can happen, what can be achieved, and connecting that to human rights is where this is not being spoken about, because it obviously shows to them in practice where it's going wrong. But knowing as well, in the times of history where changes have been achieved, there's going to be, that fight back, that pushback. And to anybody, involved in this, it is inevitable to be aware of it, to conserve energy, to respect your spoons, to take the time for self-care. And I'm very passionate as well, about advocating for mental health discussions and bringing all communities in to share on that when they can. in on a degree of, well, my gender and identity, men's mental health, you know, of getting men to open up about that discussion of emotions and connecting it to emotional intelligence, because as autistics, no matter which gender we identify as or was raised with, the usage of applied behavioural analysis, ABA, which is formed from the basis of gay conversion therapy, to completely change us who we are, to not embrace our authentic selves. We've had such fascinating discussions, but about then how we don't understand our minds and bodies in consent when something's going wrong, because practices are trying to stop us stimming, thinking, speaking, feeling. So this is very, very complex, and I think doing this real life, well, what Karen's great phrase was that, the hard work of everything, you know, drives a lot of us away. If we're in work, in and out of work, it does not matter. You know, it does not matter which position you hold or title. It's saying you have the autonomy and power to have that lived experience appreciated and not invalidated. And it's not creating that, you know, superiority of someone's better than, when I'm not saying this to say I know every person. None of us are. We keep stating that, you know, we're not speaking on behalf. We're just trying to show that autistic communication, ways of being, and neurodivergent ways of being are completely valid and will continue to thrive, but support each other as well, and saying to those on the journey, we respect the need for self-care as well, because this isn't easy, and we're all going through a lot of things personally, and it's having that awareness that I think can, of course, intimidate people on many levels. And I said this last night, and I keep saying that a lot of what drives me is that passion and thinking, if a child doesn't have to go through some of the experiences of isolation, I encountered mismanagement in education, that's amazing for me, thinking that can change, and seeing someone being allowed to be themselves, and that's the goal, to protect and allow people to thrive. And as educators, that's the dream. That's such an amazing thing. So yeah, I'm going to listen, but I won't be speaking. And yeah, I thank you all for contributing in whichever way you are here. Yeah, appreciate you all immensely.
Thanks so much, Matty. And I mean, we won't be keeping the space open much longer because Baljit and I have been going non-stop.
Just speak. I was waiting for an invitation. I'm sorry. I'm going to try to be short again.
I was speaking and my mic was off. Sorry, I had my mic off. Just give me 1 sec, because I wanted to bring Baljit in. Baljit had his hand up in the Zoom. If I could give him first access to the floor, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Baljit.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to quickly comment on the discussion before about the language being used, right? And that's coming from the South Asian perspective. There is a lot to be done. There's a lot to be learned. Myself working, I've been working through Sikhs for Autism for 3-4 years now, and it's been a learning curve. I'm myself not autistic, but I'm a father of an autistic daughter, and there is so much language and vocabulary that needs to be processed, and I think that's where organizations like Sikhs for Autism and individuals like me can take that message and go into different communities. And I know in the starting there was some discussion about information in India. Even when I'm dealing with parents in Punjab, which is the northwestern part of India, there is so much lack of information. There is almost no understanding of autism or individual being autistic, and it is like you have to start from scratch and build that up. And I think more discussions we have on this, more platforms we have on this, that is one way to help those people. There are so many individuals whose intentions are good, but they may not have the full experience, full information, full understanding of the language and how a certain language could be hurtful and negative. I think, and especially speaking from Punjabi speaking community, I know firsthand that there is lack of information there. People have good intentions, but they don't know how to express it, how to put it in words, and how to articulate those all those ideas which they have. And that's why I have tried to reach out people in Punjabi language itself and see how I can help locally in Ontario at least. I have connected with a few people in India, but we haven't had much progress there, but hopefully in coming years. So you know, more we talk about it, more Twitter spaces we have and more platforms we have such like this one, I think that would help in long term. So I just wanted to comment on that, and you know, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Baljit. Thank you for that. So we've got just about 6 minutes before the top of the hour, and I know we all will want to take a bit of a break. We're back on to a live panel. I'll be in with Jorn doing some really amazing sharing of his work, and very much looking forward to that. So I want to be alert, and I may go take a little break. That gives us, for those of you that are not joining us in Eastern Daylight Time, that gives a couple of hours between now and then. There's two recorded pieces. If you missed this morning, one from a non-speaking autistic who speaks to presume competence and the need to do that while also recognizing and accommodating cognitive differences. And another space that Tanya did, which was, I haven't got through the whole thing because I was preparing to come into this one, but just fantastic. And those are both saved to our website as well. So I think everybody that's here, there might be only one or two people actually, now that I see the faces, who haven't registered. And if you do want to have access to that, then please do check out the registration. You can still register, even though the event is ending at the end of the day. But I think, you know, this is an ongoing dialogue. We'll continue it. We'll have more spaces. We've got another, I want to say one, or is it? No, it's two more spaces tonight. Oh my gosh. So I know Matty and I definitely want to go and get, have a break for sure. And with that, unless there's any other final thoughts that one of you would like, unless there's anyone that has any other final thoughts, then I think we're probably good to close this room for the time being, with the idea being that it's not really closed. We're going to keep this door open and just connect back and figure out, where do we go next? How do we leverage those parent guardian voices, particularly those that have the lived experience, to you know, kind of glue the communities together, bridge that divide, right? All right. So again, if you, hopefully we'll see you again later on. If you've been joining us for the summit and you won't be back later on, thank you for being with us, and really appreciate everybody's voices, and your voices, you know, your positionality doesn't matter if you're autistic or not. Being here in this space, you've walked through the door, and that's what counts, and we really appreciate that. So with that, I will close the space and say thank you to everybody so much, and we'll end the recording now. Bye for now, everyone.